Hello everybody, welcome to Filmmaking Today. Bokeh and Dulabic here. So, are you looking for an awesome vintage lens for about $30? Stay tuned. This is the Industar 61LD, which is a 55mm f-stop 2.8 vintage lens from the former Soviet Union. Unfortunately, the aperture ring is not stepless. It goes from 2.8 to 4 to 5.6, 8, 11, and 16. It has an M39 Leica mount and is fully manual. You will require an adapter for your camera. In my case, I use the M39 to micro four thirds adapter. Something else to keep in mind with this lens is the minimum focusing distance, which is 106 centimeters. Now, depending on what you are doing, that can be a problem. In my case, I got a set of 4 close-up adapter filters, which basically just screw onto the top of the lens like any other filter, and it basically zooms in the image, reducing the minimum focusing distance. And here's an example what that looks like. So this is without any filter, and this is at 106 centimeters or 41.7 inches. Here's the +1 filter, which brings me to 56 centimeters and 22 inches, so definitely a big difference. Then there's the +2 filter, which brings me to 39 centimeters or 15.4 inches. And then there's the +4, which brings me to 26 centimeters or 10.2 inches. And then there's the +10 filter, which brings you all the way to 16 centimeters or 6.3 inches. In this case, I had to change the f-stop to 5.6 as it was very blurry when wide open. The Industar is a very nice vintage lens that can be bought for $30 to $40. It does not have the same characters as the Helios one, but it is still a really nice and pretty sharp vintage lens. And speaking of sharpness, let's take a look at what it looks like. Here it is at 100%, wide open at 2.8. Here we have it at 4, which does not look bad. It's definitely a bit softer on the edges. And here we have it at f-stop 8. And here it is at 16. I have noticed that it's actually less sharp at f-stop 16 than it is at f-stop 8. And I'll show you a better example in just a second. Now, this could be just my lens. Sometimes you never know what you get with these vintage lenses, so I'm pretty sure that's just my lens. Now let's zoom in 400% into the center and see what that looks like. And as you can see, it's definitely a bit softer, which is to be expected at 2.8. If we go to 4, you can see it definitely gets sharper in the center, which is a good thing for sure. And if we go to f-stop 8, you can see that it's definitely sharp here. No problems whatsoever. However, if we now go to 16, you will see that it's getting much softer, as you can see right here. And I just think that's just my lens, I assume. I haven't heard anyone else say the same thing. And now let's go to the edges and see what that looks like at 2.8. And as you can see, it's also a bit soft for sure. Wide open at 2.8. At 4, it gets a bit better for sure. And then if we go to 8, it's definitely much better. And then again at 16, it gets much softer. However, all in all, it's still pretty sharp lens. There's no doubt about that. Now let's take a look at the bokeh. So this is what it looks like, wide open at 2.8. You don't get the oval bokeh shape that you would get with the Helios lens, but you still get a little bit of character for sure. When you go down to 4, they start to resemble more of an octagon shape. And when you go down to 8, it's definitely an octagon shape. Looks like a stop sign for sure. And then when you go down to 16, it basically disappears, which is normal. And now let's take a look at some examples here of photos and videos. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. As you can see, the quality is pretty sweet on this little lens. Again, just like any other vintage lens, it's not the sharpest lens, but it's pretty sharp. As I showed you in the video, when I get to f-stop 16, it does get much softer. Like I said, I do think that's my lens. If I'm wrong, if this is just how this type of lenses is, definitely let me know in the comments. That would be a good thing to know. So aside from that, let's talk about just a few negatives about this lens. So as I already mentioned, the minimum focusing distance can definitely be a pain, so I do recommend close-up filters. You can get also a extension tubes that basically mount between your camera and your lens. And if you want to avoid any loss of quality, because by introducing close-up filters, you are of course introducing more glass. So with glass, there's always, you know, the potential for a lower quality. However, from what I've seen, honestly, I wouldn't worry about it, at least in this case. But if you want to avoid all that, extension tubes are another way to go. It is a bit of a pain because every time you want to switch distances, you gotta take off the lens and, you know, adjust it. So, you know, but that is a way to go. Now, another thing, when it comes to the actual build quality, and I have heard this from others as well with this lens, the ring to adjust the focus, it's definitely stiff. There are ways to loosen that up, but, you know, just the way it is, it's definitely stiff. I have had it where I'm trying to adjust the focus and all of a sudden you know, because it's a screw mount, I would unscrew the lens accidentally. It's very stiff and yeah, not the greatest. So I definitely recommend you looking into what to use to just to loosen that, you know, that stiffness. You're definitely going to appreciate that for sure. It is it's not a stepless aperture ring, as mentioned. Now that's a pain, of course, if you're doing video, because you want to be able to adjust that. I'm sure there's ways to open up the lens and you know, hack that. I haven't done it with this lens. I did it with the Helios one, and I might do it with this one. If I do, I'll definitely make a video about it and show you guys. But that's something to keep in mind, right? And overall, I do find, I guess because this lens is much smaller compared to, let's say, the Helios one, I do find it a bit harder to operate, especially if you have it on a gimbal or something like that, right? It's definitely much harder to operate just because of size. So another thing to keep in mind. And again, the overall quality, it's a nice vintage lens. There's no doubt about that. You will get that vintage-y look, which is always good. You're not going to get the type of bokeh you're going to get with the Helios one. So this is more of a standard kind of a bokeh. You're not getting the oval shape, oval, is that oval? That's oval. Shape or anything like that, right? So something to keep in mind. This is more of a standard type of a lens, right? So my recommendation is basically, if you have the Helios one, you're not really gaining much with this one unless you really want to look into get more vintage lenses. If you have gas like I do, that's gear acquisition syndrome for everyone out there. Any video person knows what I'm talking about. You start buying lenses and you don't stop. So if you're suffering from that, definitely get this lens. If you can control yourself, if you have the Helios lens already, yeah, you're not really getting much from this lens, right? If you don't have any of the lenses and if you don't care for the oval bokeh, maybe you don't want it, maybe you just want regular type, you know, get this one, it'll be fine. Sharpness is definitely fine. It's not a big issue for sure. So yeah, that's it, guys. All in all, I mean, you saw the videos, you saw the photos. It's a pretty cool lens. It's $30-ish. I mean, hey, can't go wrong with that. So that's it, guys. If you enjoyed this video, as always, please hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, tell your friends and all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more. Thanks.